This is the March 26th meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting is hereby called to order under the authority of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Stormwater Management Erosion Control Bylaw. Notices given that both a video and audio recording will be made of this meeting. The agent will now call the roll for attendance.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Bob Garner is absent. Judy Keys, absent. Dan Shinnick. Here. Sam Strife. Here. Howard Vogel. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum present.
All right, we'll start with our first item. Payroll and/or vendor bills.
I have some of both.
Here's Judy.
Yep.
She's just here.
Request review and approval of payroll. This is the accompanying hour sheet. Both of us. Request approval of office expense, which was some paper products and a software upgrade.
Which software?
This is the backup invoice. The photo elements program I use for managing photos. Reimbursement of postage that we drew from the notice of intent monies for Wetlands Protection Act communications. We have two backup invoices for that. That's it for that category.
The next item we have under the administrative is we have 3 sets of minutes, previous minutes, which are being transposed. And they were sent out to each of us electronically, so I'll do them one at a time. The first one was March 5th, 2019. Everybody had a chance to review that. Any questions, corrections?
I had a suggestion at the end, but I don't know whether I put into it or not.
I'm sorry?
I don't know.
We did have,
Add parcel A in there?
yep.
Okay.
Anybody want to accept the minutes as presented? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item is the October 25th, 2011. Those are sent to everybody electronically. Any questions, alterations, or? Do we have a motion to accept those as presented?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who seconded that? Judy, thank you.
Then we have the November 15th, 2011. Any questions, alterations?
There was a change made on that, I think.
That was
Yes,
made.
there was.
Yes, I saw that.
And that was okay.
Anybody want to accept that as presented with the correction that Kurt brought it?
I will move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And that brings us to a discussion item, which we have with Stephen B. Comley, second. 35 Central Street, map 28, parcel lot 6, forest cutting, landing and access. This is declared a new activity in a 100-foot buffer zone, BBD, bordering vegetated wetlands. It needs a permit or qualified agricultural exemption for normal maintenance and improvement. Mr. Kwame, do you have a 61A in force on that?
I do.
You do. All right. Have you been notified by the state that that was rescinded or not accepted?
The cutting plan was not accepted.
The cutting plan. All right. And what is going to happen on that? What's you going to get in touch with the state again? Are they supposed to get in touch with you within a certain length of time? Or
I'm not going to get in touch with them again, no.
are you going to pull it out as 61A, or are you going to? Nope. Okay. All right. If you're not going to cut on that, you're going to have to go through regular sources to try to get access to the road there.
I am going to cut.
You are going to cut,
I'm going
okay.
to cut.
Oh, all right. But not under the 61A plan?
Yes, under the 61.
Under the, oh, you are?
Yeah.
So it is still in a 60, okay.
61A is a tax classification.
For forestry, farming, area.
So we have that classification, and I'm not sure what qualifies as a farm or an agricultural activity. The
$700
61A
a
is
year.
kind of an obvious. I sent a bunch of information in to Mr. Bazelak. He has everything that I have. He also has a history of the last 50 years in forestry. We sent that to him as a courtesy.
Right.
My appearance here tonight is a courtesy to the board to try and clarify some of the problems.
Right.
We've been here before, and
Yes.
that was a courtesy as well.
Great.
It's getting extremely expensive. Just a little history. The Cross Street lot was the last one we went to battle for.
Great.
That cost about $250,000 in legal fees. The DEP was involved, Conservation was involved, and we won at trial, if you can call it that.
Right.
We did that as a courtesy to educate the board, the agents, and so forth. And that courtesy cost us a lot of money. I do not want to do that all over again. But I'm here doing it all over again. And it's completely unacceptable, unfair, and unprofessional. Mr. Bazelak has all the information. I have been very upfront with him. I've come down here when I know that he's going to be here, and I've gone over everything that we're doing. I don't have to do that, as far as I know. All right? I've gone way overboard. The family's gone way overboard in conducting wetland research and everything, so the state's okay with what we're doing, then the town's okay with what we're doing. We've notified everybody of our intent. We're not hiding anything. I didn't have to do this forestry plan. I don't have to do a cutting plan. for the amount of wood we're taking out of there and for normal maintenance and improvement. And 2 words, maintenance, improvement. That's what we lay a whole case on because we're in agricultural. And we have exemptions. Those exemptions afford us lower costs. All right? But having to educate the board and the agents and so forth is getting extremely expensive. And now we're having to educate the forestry division, who doesn't know their own regulations. And they're trying to enforce things that you're just pulling out of the, you know? So I'm here, and I have a bunch of questions. I think the biggest problem I have here, we're under a cease and desist order. The cease and desist order that I received was in verbal form. I don't understand that at all. I urge Mr. Bazelak not to do it that way, to do it the proper way. And I think by your guidelines, it's written. It's clear, it's concise, and we understand what the violations are. I was not afforded that. Mr. Bazelak decided to get local law enforcement involved, have them come down here and witness a cease and desist order that he presented to me on Friday, December 7th. That was extremely embarrassing. And it gives us a bad name. You know, everybody, we have this stigma that, okay, the farmers, Comleys, are doing something, they got to be doing something wrong. They're always up to something. It's unfair. And that is the position that Mr. Bazelak has taken. There is nothing that we have done that breaks the law. We have not violated bylaws in town as they pertain to our agricultural operation. We have not violated 310 CMR. We have not violated any forestry regulations. There is no proof of that, but we have a cease and desist order. Thursday, prior to the cease and desist, I knew that Mr. Bazelak would be off on Friday. I came down on a Thursday to let him know that we would be starting this project on the weekend. Gave him plenty of notice. All right. He came in on his day off, and I'm not so sure he had the authority to give me the cease and desist.
Well, let me speak for what I've been reading, because I've been trying to dig into this myself. I'm not sure about you. You or Brent are much more up on the laws between 61As and stuff. But I believe Mr. Bazelak was under the impression that the 61A was rescinded. Am I mistaken?
Actually, 61A has absolutely nothing to do with this, Mr. Chairman.
If you have a 61A, do you still have to follow all, getting the IDAs and stuff for operating within 100 feet of the wetlands?
You do if normal maintenance and improvement means there's something there that you are maintaining and improving. Mr. Comley has been requested numerous times. He has verbally told a number of people, including myself, that a plan exists that shows a connection from Central Street to the residual parallel cart path or trail or whatever from the Fennel Estate that parallels Central Street at that location. That location is within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands, and they made a number of requests of him. He hasn't related to the board that when the officer came to meet me at the annex, it was unanticipated that Mr. Conley was going to come to the annex since our office isn't normally open. I had been called in by you specifically, and I was waiting for the officer to accompany me to the site so we could actually view what was occurring. Mr. Conley came into the office here. Among numerous declarations that he made that morning was that he was not going to honor any verbal cease and desist, that I needed to do it in writing, as he said. I requested of him to be provided with the plan that showed some type of historic cart path, woods road, trail connection or whatever that extended from Central Street right through the area where he's now deposited a bunch of crushed stone and done some excavating, connecting to the old Fenno Drive or Fenno Estate cart path. To this date, although he says he's submitted stuff to me, I'm afraid I'm not in receipt of any particular plans or anything. So, since he came down just very recently in his request to speak to the board this evening, he again made numerous statements that I was in possession of a plan that he didn't give me the name of, a plan that he didn't give me the date of, a plan that has been alluded to in conversations with other town departments, but no one has seen. So therefore, I tried to do my due diligence because I had been waiting for him to.
Rather than getting he said, she said.
It's a moot point. It really is. Okay. He has the maps. I know he has the maps. Okay, and he's lying.
Well,
If he's telling me,
I
if
have
he's
personally
telling
been
the
down here,
board-
and I'm trying to figure out what's going on and seeing the forestry map.
Okay. I
Is that
will
what
give
you
you
were doing?
everything. Okay, and I will also show you the guidelines that I am pleading my case on, which I shouldn't have to do. All right.
No,
May
let me just because I'm not a lawyer or anything like that.
Right.
If you have 61A property, I have 61A property. I don't have to file anything with Valley when we have heavy equipment on the marsh getting 2,000 bales out. Because I don't, the reason I can do that is because I fall into the farm category.
Right.
I was under the impression, I could be wrong, I've never read it anywhere, but it was the same for the forestry. You have to square away with the forestry, the state forester, but not.
Well, we received a communication from the supervisor of the service forester, who the service forester had disapproved two of his forest cutting plans. Both those plans showed a landing area and a proposed access road or connection going across the intermittent stream and crossing bordering vegetated wetlands at that area. So as I said, I made an attempt to find said plan that I'm in possession of. My first stop was the Registry of Deeds, looking up the deed that's recorded for this particular parcel, which is displayed on the screen from 1956, which doesn't show any woods roads, cart paths, or anything in this particular area. In fact, it actually is rather uninformative.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just
So-
like a plot plan.
Yeah,
No elevations,
correct.
streams, or.
None of this means anything. We're just wasting time right now.
Well,
May I submit
excuse me.
what I have? So
So here's his forestry plan from 1983, which shows Woods Road or cart path, but shows nothing here. Shows the area to be cut. I apologize, it's upside down. Shows that apparently Pond View was used as the main access for that particular forestry cut. Seems pretty germane to the subject. Here's the forestry plan submitted in the 2013 cutting plan, which again, much better detail of forest access roads, forest roads going through there, no access road, landing, or anything else proposed for that area. Because that was
cut
in
that area.
2013. So only the recently submitted disapproved forest cutting plans showed any type of landing access road in that area. The supervisor of the service foresters said that since the plans were disapproved and he wasn't working with the DCR forester any further, that it appeared to her that this was a subject then that possibly needed our attention. We have a submittal that's called a request to determine applicability. That's what you started to engage in here tonight, is a determination of applicability. And that's really what needs to be filed for that work that's there, because there wasn't anything pre-existing to be maintained or improved.
So if,
According to who?
Well, the commission are the folks that are appointed to make determinations such as that, which
Determination
is
whether we should improve our land or not?
a determination as to whether the specific work that's been done at that location. And here again, with all due patience, we've been waiting for some type of submittal, which, it's been said that we're in possession of, but I'm just unable to find anything in the file that shows a landing or woods road at that
In
location.
an interest of time.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
I was told I got
Right.
15 minutes. I think Brent just took it all. So, what I have here, all right, I'll give you a timeline. On October 3rd, 2018, ConCom, DCR, and all abutters were notified of an approved forest plan by certified mail. That is right here. It's approved by forestry. Okay? That's our forestry plan. All right? We do it every 10 years. Sometimes, when we need to maintain, we'll let the state know that we're going to do an amendment. Okay? In between those 10 years. And we've done that on this one. Okay? They approved the forestry plan. It's all signed, first page. Everything is clear and concise. All right?
approved by who again?
DCR. Okay. On 10/4,
July 30th, 2018.
okay, and this is kind of important. These are two denied cutting plans. So once that goes through, they want to know what we're cutting.
Right.
All right? So on 10/4, DCR received a cutting plan, certified mail, and then from that point had 10 days to respond.
Right.
If they don't respond within 10 days, we start. We did not do that in this case because we're trying to get along with DCR, but they don't follow their own regulations. Because they didn't, I could have started cutting on October 4th, but I did not, mostly because it wasn't frozen. They did not respond timely as required to respond on 10/22. They took 18 days to respond, not 10. They didn't like that one. They wanted us to use the neighbor's lawn for a landing to pull all the logs out.
You can't do that.
The neighbors would allow us to do that, but I mean, that's not reasonable. And I wouldn't ask the neighbor to do that.
It
We'll
destroys
make a
it.
mess.
You can't do that.
They wanted us to change the landing to the neighbor's yard, so they denied that. We submitted another one to try and get along with them and try and work it out. And we're trying to do a landing on both sides of the stream so we don't have to go through it. All right? It's expensive. All right? We just needed a little entry from the road so I can get a chipping truck in there and we can do everything right by the road and stay out of the wetlands. They didn't like that idea. They want us to use the neighbor's yard. They have to accommodate us reasonably. They're not doing that by this. The second one we sent in, we revised a few things to try and work with them, and we moved the landing.
What's the date on that?
They also had 10 days to respond to that, as they did not respond timely. They responded on, so 11/14 we sent it in, 11/30, 16 days later, they sent us another disapproval. We had the option to start, again, 10
What was
days.
their disapproval for?
What he's not telling you is
These-
that 10 days, their clock starts ticking once they receive it. That's
Okay.
how they count 10 days. once
All
they-
this stuff was sent to the ConCom, okay, per the forestry plan. We got to let you guys know what's going on too. All right. Nobody said anything, and you guys had 10 days to schedule something and raise, your concerns and so forth, and we would have come down and worked that out. We did not get any. We didn't get any rebuttal. We didn't get anything. There was no questions. There was nothing. So after that 10-day period, we got to go ahead. We should be able to do it. All right. Now, I'll remind the board that we did not have to do the amount of wood that we're going to cut on this property is below 50 cord, all right, that is exempt. That means we don't have to do any of this paperwork. We did it to get along with our neighbors so they know what's going on, ConCom knows what's going on, and we did it as a courtesy, as well as the state. So there's no questions. This is the first time I've ever received a disapproval on a cutting plan. And I know why.
Why? Oh, person.
It's political.
Okay.
Okay?
That was
Never
gonna be my
question
question.
anything. They just go ahead. We did everything we were supposed to on that plan by law. And they're saying that we didn't because they didn't even come out and look at it. Marking the boundaries, something we have to do. The state marks the boundaries. We double mark them. There's orange all over half the trees that mark the border. They say we didn't do it, but we did. I've had it with the forestry plans. Okay, so we're not going to do it anymore. Because I don't have to. The amount of wood we're cutting, I'm exempt. And I'll tell you, and it's right in the guidance document, chapter 132. MGL, chapter 132, subsection 40 through 46.
Can I see the
Section
plan?
44, exempted cuttings. The provisions of this section 42 and 43 shall not apply. Cutting by an owner or tenant of any forest product for his own non-commercial use. Not to exceed 50 cords. So that's exempt. We didn't have to do any of these plans.
Steve, what are you doing with what you're cutting?
We can either use it for our own use,
I'm
or we
asking
can sell
what
it
was your-
commercially.
And that's,
This amount we sell commercially.
Was that about
Okay.
50? 50, yeah.
Over the 50, it's commercial.
Right.
WPA regulations 310 CMR 10.0 define forestry as an agricultural activity. The WPA furthermore provides an exemption for work performed for normal maintenance and improvement of land and agricultural use. For forestry, normal maintenance activities are those that involve management of harvesting of forest products, either for commercial sale or for one's own use. The activities that are considered to be normal maintenance and improvement in land and agriculture are defined by 310 CMR 10.04. Include a variety of forestry management practices. For our purposes here, we will deal strictly with the harvesting of forest products. Land must be devoted to the continued production of forestry products. Okay, so the 5-year rule does not apply. Okay, trees grow. They take 100 years in some cases to get a decent tree. So we're out of the 5-year thing, so it's continuous. Wetland resource areas properly identified on the forest cutting plan, which we did. The applicant files a copy of the cutting plan with the local conservation commission at least 10 days prior to the start of cutting. We did that. There was no objection. We didn't have to do that. Commercial harvest of 25,000 board feet or 50 cords or less. Exempt. Don't have to do a thing. Don't have to let you guys know. Don't have to talk to the neighbors. Don't have to do anything.
How many cords do you anticipate doing?
What's that?
How many cords do you anticipate doing?
Less than 50. Now that I'm not going to deal with the state anymore. I can do 50 every single year. This one, I think,
Now, you're not talking, let me just interrupt, Steve. I know you're on a tangent here, but you're not going to try to fill that stream. You're going to you said you're going to be going,
I have the option to fill it.
but are you?
I may. Construction, and this is access ways, which will answer your question. Construction and maintenance of access ways for commercial harvest or for cutting of forest products for owner use may be exempt from the wetland regulations provided that certain conditions spelled out in 310 CMR are met. All access way may only be located in a resource area if it is impractical to avoid it. Okay? But we can still do it. Any owner wishing to install a permanent improvement in streams and wetland resources must file a WPA notice. Okay? That part is important. We have a crossing. Okay? It's been there for years. It's because some of our neighbors like to take dirt bikes and four-wheelers through there. It has grown because they keep going around in the dry spot or hammer right through the middle of it. All right? It's a bridge, okay?
Where is that? Is that,
Right there.
there's actually a bridge?
There's actually a bridge. It's used for, dirt bikes or foot, traffic and
Been there forever.
tractors. It's been there forever. Everybody uses it. That's how they get to the land.
I know very little of this section of your property. I'm aware of, I know the property very well.
All right. Filing of the cutting plan, okay, and exemptions. Cutting by an owner or a tenant for his own non-commercial use, exempt. Maintenance, cutting in pastures. If we want to have it a pasture, which we have the option, throw some cows out there, we can still do all this. All right. It says down here, although an operation may be exempt because it's non-commercial under the threshold volume, the owner conducting such a harvest may still file a forest cutting plan under the provisions of this act to obtain an exemption. We didn't need to, but we did. This is the part that gets me. Because we did file the forestry plan, the jurisdiction has nothing to do with ConCom. In the guidance packet, which you should have, it states
Now, the person that filled this out for you, this management plan, is a licensed forester?
yes,
For the state or private?
it's private. In the guidance, it states in here that the ConCom should not initiate enforcement actions as it is the DCR responsibility and jurisdiction. That was totally ignored. In your own bylaws, agricultural activities are exempt.
That's what I thought.
Okay, on top of 310 CMR, which is most of the bylaw, exempt. So, given that, all this is here, and Mr. Bazelak has it. He has the history of the forestry plan, okay? He has this. Second page, history.
I saw that.
Goes back to 97. That's enough. He pled my case, it's 1983. That's a long time. And we've been doing it for 50 years. I don't see how we can prove any more than we've already proved. He has all the information. He had everything he needed. I have questions at this point as they pertain to normal procedure as far as the ConCom is concerned, or at least its agents. All right? We've had this problem before. It is not my job to educate Mr. Bazelak. He should be qualified in his position. So, my questions. At this point, what exactly is ConCom's authority or jurisdiction over land and agricultural use?
I cannot completely, honestly say answer it. I was under the impression because I had to qualify for a farm myself of what you read at the end, but I don't really,
No authority or jurisdiction in land and agricultural use. Now, the farm is over 250 acres. 97% of that is in agriculture.
Sam, you had a question?
Or comment?
I know we do have authority over certain things, but I can't describe what they are because,
Because you don't know.
what?
Because you don't know.
I don't know the exact
Yeah,
portion.
nobody
Okay,
knows.
but I.
He
I
doesn't
have-
know. You don't know. That's why we're in this shit.
I have
All right.
read. Yeah,
Let's make this easy. You guys, some of the board members are our neighbors, and we've always had a neighbor on the board, okay? And our intent, and I respect the board. You guys are volunteering so much of your time, I get it. And I think you all have good intent. However, your agent is working against me and against you, and he's putting you in jeopardy. And you have to see that. Let me answer the question. My understanding of an exempt activity, no jurisdiction whatsoever. Okay? Because we live in this town and you're our neighbors and we need to do what we can for our community so they understand. Okay? And it gets exhaustive. Okay? But we're still doing it. All right? The answer is no jurisdiction, no authority over exempt activities. That's the way the bylaw reads.
Anybody on the board make a
The,
Comment about
comment on that? Yeah.
I actually know the state law better than the town law. The state law does give ConCom's authority over some aspects of agriculture on a filed agricultural property.
Okay. I don't.
Okay.
I need to
But
see
it's-
something.
Well,
It's-
they
it's-
give you authority over something that's a nuisance. And I can tell you that. That's what they do.
No, I'm not.
Smells.
No, no.
Oh, yeah.
Not conservation.
That's Board of Health, I
not-
believe.
Well, Board of Health, whatever.
on
That's,
the conservation has
if
authority
it's a nuisance, they
over
can-
activities that occur in wetlands or bordering wetlands, okay? And if something if there is what I will call a new activity in those areas, then we have authority.
Would you say there's new activity here?
But if it's maintaining, if it's doing what has always been done, then,
To you, it might be new activity. To us, and given the history and the information,
Well, I know.
it's not a new activity. It's been
Steve,
continuous.
I know very well that forestry is not a new activity. And I know Brent knows that too.
Okay, so
the issue,
that answers my
Every-
first two questions.
since
Authority.
everyone is taking the opportunity to talk here, the issue has only been the construction of that landing, the crushed rock landing. Because the two harvesting plans that I was in possession of that had been copied on, I was told they were disapproved.
I just read the exemption for that. We have a
No,
right to
you-
put a landing in. We don't need a
No,
permit.
you
for it.
actually didn't use the words landing at what you quoted specifically from there. You talked
Okay.
about forestry activities. and-
Next
and
question.
yeah.
Okay, let me
So-
just,
Next question.
let me just,
Well, so this is actually very easy, succinctly decided here.
what do you people think? Is this over our
I think
jurisdiction?
this is getting a little too personal.
It's
And I
getting,
think that
I
his big
agree.
quarrel
I
is
totally agree.
with the forestry people.
I think the
essentially,
quarrel
the
is with the
biggest
forestry
quarrel.
people
Okay.
myself.
Not-
I'm not going to deal with the
They
forestry
dodge
people
the
at
vote
this
of the
juncture.
wetlands.
No.
Okay? That's the next step. Okay? In regards to enforcement orders and cease and desist orders, can the administrator act on his own, or must the ConCom ratify those orders before they are given?
He can act on his own.
That's
And
not
then-
what.
And then he gets approval. Am I right?
That's
Well,
not,
first off, we're not talking in order.
that's
We're
not
talking-
how you're supposed to
We're
do
talking
it.
the verbal cease and desist is the issue.
How many verbal cease and desist orders have you ever given?
Several.
Several?
Yes.
Yeah,
That is not the way you,
It's splitting hairs.
it's not splitting hairs, okay?
yeah.
You have to do things a certain way, and this is the way you say you do it, okay? It's right in, it's right in the bylaws, okay? It's right in your instructions, how you carry this out. All right, so, so you guys don't have to ratify the orders. He
That's
can
not
work
true.
on his, and I'm glad to hear
You
this.
can't ratify something that hasn't been issued, or hasn't been ordered. As a practical matter, under normal circumstances, if there's something going on that needs to be stopped, you don't have time to write up a formal 5 or 6 page order. So an oral is typically done at that point, and then it's subject to writing later on, and it is subject to ratification or non-ratification by this board. That's just normal procedure.
It's not being done properly. If this is the way it's being done, it's not proper, okay? I've never received any paperwork from him on a cease and desist.
That's because it hasn't been issued yet. It hasn't come before the board yet. You know, he
Okay,
saw a
so
situation that,
you guys have no knowledge of the cease and desist order.
I know that an oral one was.
I know of
Did
the
you
cease
okay
and
it?
desist.
Yes.
I kinda wish
thought
you
it was
didn't
gonna
say
be
that.
temporary.
Okay.
I thought
So
was-
you're, all right, you're going beyond your authority, and by doing that, you're all personally liable. I was hoping it was just gonna be Brent, all right? And you didn't know what he was doing. It doesn't make any sense that you guys would okay that.
We haven't gone to the second step yet.
How many months has it been?
I don't know, but there's all sorts of issues that cloud the
Okay,
situation.
we're gonna get to these issues
well, in
tonight.
a logging situation like that, you can only do it in the wintertime.
Oh, I know that.
So when you
to
gave me the
time it.
cease and desist, I had machines lined up ready to go.
Right off.
That is extremely expensive, and it makes me look like an ass when I got to tell them, no, ConCom came up with something else, we got to stop. And I told them I wouldn't respect it, but I have to because you can fine me. And I'm not into paying fines. So, all right. How many verbal cease and desist orders in the last year? None? How many in the last 10
This
years?
doesn't have anything to do with this particular.
All right. Well, that's not how you, and I will show you what your guidelines are. And you should know them.
If there's a situation that's going on that's questionable, you
Okay.
have to wait till the next board meeting to deal with these stuff.
When law enforcement is necessary to enforce a cease and desist order, is there a chain of command or a process that is used?
I have no knowledge.
By rights, if you're going to involve somebody else other than your administrator, you need to check with the selectman. And the selectman will talk to the chief, and the chief will come down and say, Steve, knock it off. That is the way it's supposed to go. And that's not being followed. So, was the commission aware that Mr. Bazelak was issuing a cease and desist? That's been answered. Yes.
I guess you
From
have to say
all of
yes.
you, I assume, you all had knowledge that he was doing
It was
this.
never spoken openly at a meeting.
No, no,
Okay, it sounds like he didn't follow the normal protocol. Why did he not follow the normal protocol when it came to the Central Street property? Was it because the Comley name was on it?
I
No.
would not think so.
Okay, so this week alone, I believe Mr. Bazelak gave another cease and desist order to a farm in town. Correct? Okay, well, you did. And you gave him a written cease and desist. Okay? And his farm is older than ours. And he was conducting farming operations. You followed the protocol with him. You gave him a piece of paper. You told him what he's doing wrong.
I feel
By
very
rights,
uncomfortable with.
over your authority again.
Can we pull the cease and desist and let him take this up with the state?
I don't even know what he's talking about right now, but again, it's not germane to the particular issue that he requested.
Is the ConCom aware that a cease and desist order was given to the Ricker Farm this week or last
We
week?
did talk about the Ricker Farm because
Okay.
we had a neighbor. that
Is it in
had
writing?
land.
Is it in writing?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, we
why
should-
wasn't us?
Yeah, exactly. So he's not following the normal protocol, right?
At this point, I would like to, can we invalidate the cease and desist?
It's not that simple.
We're not at this
Okay.
point.
I need to answer these. I need to ask these questions. I need them answered to decide where I'm going with this. All right.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Bazelak took it upon himself to go have a discussion with Patrick Snell from the Highway Department. What was the purpose of that discussion?
We covered that because you told him there was a plan that showed some type of connection there.
So what?
Well, because obviously your whole point is that I'm sadly uninformed and I'm not able
It
to
seemed-
access information that you say is within the office. And
What was the purpose? What was the purpose?
Why did you talk with him? What did he have to do with this? And why are you telling him that I'm breaking all the rules?
I have gone and spoke to Mr. Snow, not knowing if he had gone to Mr. Snow, because I wanted to know what is the usual for street access, and he says, I just did it with Steve.
There's a permit, right? And we have a permit. I don't know why you're going into that jurisdiction, or why you're asking him questions, and why you're leading him astray.
Asked and answered, Steve. I
Okay.
said I was trying to ascertain what the
Okay.
plan was that showed the connection that you were improving as opposed to newly constructing.
It doesn't matter. You should know these guidelines better
Actually,
than I
it
do.
does matter because
doesn't
again,
matter.
it says
Right.
normal maintenance and improvement, which means there's something there to improve or maintain.
Access roads are exempt, given that plan. I'm sorry. You can put a road in. You got to be able to get to the wood. You can put, when you start a forestry project, or you don't start a forestry project, you have a right to get into the wood. Whether you're cutting it under the plan or you're cutting it for yourself. That is a legal access off Central Street. I never gave it up. The family never gave it up. Okay? It hasn't been used for a while. But for this forestry plan, we needed it, and we needed a landing there. And it's perfectly legal and it's exempt, and you have nothing to say about it at all. I gave you a heads up to what we're doing. I was right up front with you. I wasn't hiding a damn thing. All right. My last question is, after we started this project, I got to meet one of my neighbors, Mr. Sousa. Okay? I've never met him before, don't know him. I mean, he's lived next to us for 20 years, but I don't know the guy. Comes out and tells me that I can't do what I'm doing immediately. Doesn't even shake my hand. Doesn't introduce himself. Okay, I'm not used to neighbors like that. I discussed with him what I was doing, and he told me I can't do anything down there. It's wetlands. He doesn't know the wetland regulation. I'm sure his wife does, at least at this point. She's a lawyer. She understands the process, okay, and I'm sure she read up on it. But they're telling me what I can do. I'm sick of people telling us what we can do on our farm. It's not fair. We get along with most of our neighbors, okay? We let them know what's going on. We're right up front with them because it's scary. Something all of a sudden is coming up. Oh, what's going to happen? Okay, I think there was talk about a strip club. I mean, you know, we were right up front. We let them know exactly what we're doing. They have no excuse for putting us through this, bad-mouthing us on whatever the talk is in town, online. Totally unfair and unacceptable, especially when, and this is my next thing, especially when they're dumping trash in the wetlands on our land. And they've done it for years. I brought it to Brent's attention. Has anything been done to at least remediate some of the wetlands? To clean up the damn mess? I mean, batteries, buckets of tar are dumped on our land. And it's a ramp going right up to their lawn. I showed it to you, did I not?
Actually, no.
Oh my God!
We never went that far.
You're
into the
lying.
property.
You are lying.
Well, it's just
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. I appreciate your
You
condemnation.
walked down there. I showed you what was going on. I sent you pictures. You took your own pictures.
All right. It's getting personal now.
All right.
What would the board like to do with it? Let me give a few minutes.
I would like to conclude if I could.
Yes.
All right. In conclusion, given the fact that I believe that the ConCom has the best interest in our community, because you're actually members of our community, okay. All right. I'm going to urge the commission, okay, to distance themselves from Mr. Bazelak in the way he's acting. It's with malice. I don't know why. I've got along with him. I've tried to get along with him. But I urge you to distance yourself from him, because he's going to get you all in trouble. And the last thing I want to do is create a lawsuit. At this point...
We're loaded. We're loaded with a lawsuit.
Yeah.
It's cutting.
We expect him
cutting
to
dry.
act professionally. That's all we expect. And fairly. Without bias. And by the rules. Code of conduct. Code of ethics.
All right, Mr. Clomley.
All right, hold on. Another
okay.
paragraph.
Don't-
I would also urge the commission to distance themselves and so forth. I believe he's acted in a manner that puts the board at risk from a legal point of view. And by stepping beyond his authority, which he has done numerous times, this is not the only time. It's been happening for 10 years. He has not only made himself personally liable, but he's put the board in that same position. At this time, my family has to consider legal remedies, as we have losses associated with this cease and desist order that Mr. Bazelak has provided us. Verbally, Mr. Bazelak agrees to tender his resignation within 2 weeks. We will drop any legal action for the entire board, or we will consider it. But this is getting ridiculous, and it needs to stop. And we can't afford it.
It's out of control. Totally out of control.
If he can't educate himself on basic agricultural exemptions, which are a total of maybe 2 paragraphs, it's irresponsible. And I have educated him myself numerous times. I brought him all the literature. This is unfair. And this isn't how it's supposed to work. And it needs to change. You know, bringing somebody in from the outside has its risk when you're a community. I trust this community. I think we're all doing, my family is doing what we can for this community. All right, we bring in an outsider that is going rogue, and he doesn't have our community in mind for whatever reason. We just ask for a fair shake. We have done way beyond what we're supposed to do to try and educate and communicate with the Conservation Commission, and we always have. And I hope going further we can do that. But I'll tell you, I've lost interest in forestry management plans. Okay? Just to make things clear to Brent, $10,000 was put into a wetland delineation. Okay? It's not going to be a total waste of money, because eventually there's going to be a slew of houses out there because of the treatment we've received from the Conservation Commission. My blood pressure is way too high for this kind of stuff. I just soon sit on a beach somewhere and let Rowley have the land. But I'll tell you, it's hypocritical at best.
No, we're getting kicked out of here. It's getting ridiculous. That's it.
So, can I ask a question? So,
No, I got 2 kids.
no, go ahead.
He doesn't have any. I have to convince my kids to take over the property.
Sure. I'm
And keep
trying to
the open
understand.
space, the open space that everybody likes. That
I
we
know, and I'm on the
provided.
open. By the way, I'm the representative to the Open Space Committee. So
Yeah,
I have a
all right,
question.
you shut me down.
I'm
Go
trying.
ahead.
I'm trying to understand
Being ridiculous.
what is your intent at this point?
Our intent is to run our farm.
Okay, and to run your farm,
Any way
you're
you
saying
want.
that part of this activity was to do some maintenance work to be able to run your farm effectively.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. And at this point, you feel that you've been dealt with in an unfair way.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so my question is that at this point, if this committee can sit down and take all that under consideration, okay, and try to figure out a way to make you feel that you're being dealt with correctly and fairly, is that something you'll accept?
No.
You won't.
No. You know why?
Why?
Because of the history we've had. This goes back 20 years.
So then you can't change anything because history can't be changed. It's there. So we're sitting here. If we're sitting here trying to figure out a way to work with you fairly, and you're telling me no, you can't because of history, you've got us in a stalemate. You do. We can't move.
Well, we're at a point where, Jesus, do we go forward with this mess? Do we keep continuing doing this? Or do we bail out and get the hell out of here? That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
I would hope that, because I think many of the people on this board, as you have also said, have what's best for Raleigh in mind.
Yes.
By the way, do we
This
do
guy over
everything?
here does not.
I can't make a statement on that one way or the other, but this group of people does have that in mind, right?
I hope so.
And so the question is that, if there's a way for us to sit down and take a look at this situation and try to move ahead in a fair way that encourages. By the way, I'm a big believer in farming. My uncle was a farmer. I'm not from this area, right? So I believe in farming and integrating it into a community. If you felt you've been unfairly dealt with, we got to figure out what that was and how we can turn it around.
I just told you.
That's one way. That's not necessarily the answer.
The bottom line is, okay, the board is one thing. This guy's going rogue, and he's got malice, or he's got it in for me or whoever. But he's not doing things the way the board should be doing them.
Or
Period.
the way you would like
He's
it
breaking
to do
all
it.
the.
Now, this is ridiculous. My blood pressure's going through the roof.
Imagine if you got the bills of the lawyers that we had to pay. You would probably you probably
You
go
follow
right
the
off.
rules just like everyone else.
Uh-huh.
And you've got sort of a history of
Of what?
wanting to do it your own
Don't
way,
open up.
regardless.
That
That
is
is
unfair.
That's
That is
out
totally
of line.
That's exactly what they
Well,
were
what
saying.
you're saying.
That is out of line.
Okay.
All right,
So
at this point,
we know where we're
Steve,
going.
let me,
Okay.
you're right, yeah.
I will
You got
consider.
your 45 minutes out of 15, okay? At this point, if you no longer have a cease and desist, as long as you promise me you're not going to fill that stream without some further information.
I'm not going to promise you that.
I think based on this meeting, I think you guys ought to write us a formal letter on how you thought this went. That's it.
At this point, I have no alternative but to bring you all into a lawsuit. And he's put you
Go
there.
right in.
Get rid of them, find somebody else that knows what they're doing, and I will consider dropping it. But I don't want to do this again. The next guy hopefully knows what he's doing. He knows the regulations, and he knows what a farm is, and he knows what agricultural activities are. All right? I trust you. You seem pretty trustworthy people. Don't trust him. I don't trust him. I don't know enough about him. I've known him for 10 years. And he backstabs me left and right. And he treats me unfairly.
not
And he's
true,
put you
Steve.
all on the burner.
It's not true.
So get rid of him. It's the best thing you can do. And if you do it, I'll shut up. And it'll go away. But something needs to be done. Disciplinary. You know, he's an employee. Do something.
Bud,
It's making me sick.
can we rescind that?
I took him at his word when he declared at least 3 or 4 times in front of the police
Without-
officer
without-
that he was
yeah.
not even going to adhere to it or even follow it.
Well, then,
And I deferred and waited for him to turn in the plans that he's been saying he could educate me on.
Okay, so it's been rescinded.
it's been rescinded. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You get an education.
I'd like to say one more thing.
Okay,
Go ahead.
who moved? Sam moved, right? Howard seconded? I'm sorry?
No, wait, do we
I think
vote?
I vote present on that.
All in favor? Aye.
I vote
What
present.
was your comment?
I'd just like to say, for the record, I've been on this board for 30 plus years. I've known Mr. Baislick for all of his time on the board. I don't believe that he harbors any personal ill will towards the present presenters here tonight. We've interacted on a number of things over the years. He is a very sober, serious dedicated person to conservation values and puts in enormous amounts of time in this town on weekends and on special days, working in the town on his own time. And I hate to see those kinds of things said about him. He's one of the most competent agents that I think you'll find in the state. And well, I could go on for some length, and I think I'll just leave
Well,
it at that.
these people are all being held up here by a little length of
May
time.
I be heard just briefly?
Yes.
I agree with Kurt on this, and I vote present on that last motion.
Okay.
Be sure it's noted. And I trust Frank. I'll go on record.
That brings us to our 745 item, which is a new notice of intent application at 51 Oyster Point Road, map 27, parcel law 90. Rafi Kabazian, sorry if I say it wrong, Lisa Kennedy, proposed construction for subsurface sewage disposal system, possibly within 100 feet. Buffer zone of salt marsh, coastal bank, ACEC, with the ACEC land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Hello, Dan Johnson of Domestic Septic Design. I was hired by the homeowners to upgrade their failed septic system at 51 Oyster Point Road. If you go down Railroad Ave, take a left on Oyster Point Road, go parallel with the choo-choo tracks, go all the way to the end, take a right, and goes literally all the way out in a little peninsula. It's the last house out there. It's basically a small little lot, completely covered by, surrounded by the salt marsh. Before I get into the detail of the septic system, we're in everything. We're all within the ACEC, we're all within a 100-foot buffer zone of the salt marsh, we're all within the coastal storm flowage, everything. And that's just the least of the issues here. Just a little background, I actually met with the Board of Health before I even submitted a septic plan to go over what I think is the best remedy to replace the septic system, because along with those environmental restrictions and concerns, you have an existing well that sits right in the middle of the house, and the two abutter wells, which takes all this area of this extremely small lot out of it.
All three.
Yes, so we have 3 wells. This existing well obviously is within 100 feet of everything on the property. So the challenge here was to design a septic system that can keep out of the 100-foot buffer zone of the well. Well, that can't happen. 50-foot buffer zone of the well, that can't happen. 100-foot buffer zone of salt marsh, that wasn't happening. ACEC, everything else. So now we had to come up with a septic system that is basically a secondary and possibly a tertiary treatment system. And then what I ended up proposing to the board before I submitted any formal plan like I'm doing now, is to replace the 60 failed system with a microfast 0.05. And all that is a pretreatment that takes out all the BOD, phosphorus, nitrogen, gets all those loadings under 5 milligrams per liter. However, it still doesn't get rid of the nasties, the bacteria, and the pathogens. So fortunately, doing a lot of work on Cape Cod over the years, we put in ultraviolet disinfection units right after that. That gets rid of the pathogens, 99%. And so you have the treatment system along with the UV protection, then goes into a pressure distribution system. Fortunately, we have pretty good soil there, relatively shallow groundwater table, obviously being near the salt marsh. But we have all this system here that's within only, 19, 20 feet of the well. Normally, no one ever wants to do that, but you have such a limited site here, nowhere else to go. So the board actually agreed to go through all the variances, even though I haven't submitted it formally, but I did a public hearing. They said, let's do it so that you wouldn't have to put a tight tank in. The other restrictive areas here, you have this right-of-way easement, this little dashed line that goes right through that allows access to this piece of parcel. This septic system, fortunately, even though it's kind of near or within it, does not change his ability to access and egress his property. One of the concerns we had was mounted system, and the board didn't want a mounted system, so we were able to go with local variances and through the state alternative technology to put a system in that's not mounted because of all this environmentally protective design here. And as a result, we were able to get a system in. It's being under final review of the Board of Health. We haven't gone in front of them yet. They've had a plan for about a month and a half that they're going through their
I
process.
see a well out there.
Yes, these 2 wells are on the butters. But fortunately, this is their 100-foot buffer zone, so we instantly took this part of the property out of it. So we had to deal with all this area here. And as a result, we were able to get a new system in there, but as I alluded to, and also one thing, point of note, we are out of, all the components are out of the top of Coastal Bank. It just worked out that I was able to squeeze it in. I tried to do it, and I was able to technically keep it out of the top of Coastal Bank. That was the only thing I could actually technically get as far as the environmental restrictions of not only the Wetlands Protection Act, but everything else. And that's pretty much it.
What's the age of the dwelling?
Brent, you have any idea? I don't know how. It's been out there for a long time.
I didn't look up that specific aspect of it.
I don't. Yeah, I've been.
Pre-World War II, probably.
The original structure is this. The garage.
The garage or whatever was
2003.
2003.
It was updated or something
2004,
like that,
I think.
right? Yeah. They have a garage with.
Right when I first came to work for the commission.
I think a studio, a painter or something like that.
Yeah.
Above it, right.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions on that? Any neighbors here have any questions on it?
Yeah, I have if I can point to it here, the property
Yep.
up here on this end, right up on, it's the knoll that sits up above and looks down out onto the marsh and encompasses part of the marsh as well. And it has
Your
found,
name and address for the record.
yeah, Matt Jackson.
Thank you.
Yep. And it's-
You came to us a couple of years ago or something, didn't you?
no, I came to the last meeting on this.
Oh, maybe that was it.
Yep. And my concerns were that they're putting it in my only access to my property, which is through these two buildings and up onto my property. But there is a foundation that's still there on the property where there was a fire a while ago that burnt the place down. And there is a well up there as well that's not located or not shown on this. And I was just wondering, is that going to affect, my question is that going to affect my well being so close?
Is the well active?
It's not active, no.
Okay.
How many feet away? Approximately?
Approximately?
100?
No, nowhere near. I mean, it's from here, this is the property, this is the foundation, right?
So that circle is what?
Right there.
Yeah, so
So I didn't know whether that's going to be an issue or a problem if I,
might be an issue for you. Which, how close can you get for leaching?
Well, we're 19 feet for this
Oh,
situation. Yes.
for their own well.
Yes. They'd like to keep 100 feet. Anything greater than 50 feet is usually
Is it 50?
is allowed.
That would be really close.
It's Board of Health. It's Board of Health.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
Congress.
Yeah.
with it has to deal with the
Right.
Board of Health, and they'll probably figure out it's been abandoned, and so it's. I thought I'd leave that interpretation up to them. There's no house.
Right.
There's no one.
But I would, for
Right.
him, for both of your sake. Yeah, so, well,
He needs to go to Board
Right.
of Health.
Board of Health.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not our.
So we should not vote on this until we know if that's gonna affect.
No,
No, that's no bearing on that.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's nothing that we should hold up our deliberations on.
Yeah.
If the Board of Health makes some kind of changes,
Then
our
we-
orders of conditions all say that the applicant needs to come back if there is a need to possibly revise or amend the plan. So, yeah. That, again, because that's within the Board of Health's purview, whatever criteria they need to apply to
All right,
that.
you should do that
That's their
immediately.
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I will. I'll find
Okay, well, anybody else have any questions in regards to this system? And the Board of Health is already okayed.
Yeah, they've initially through it, but they're just doing a final review process.
That's good.
But yeah.
Oh, you have a motion? Oh, you have a question?
No, I just, about the ultraviolet lights, what's the power source and how strong are they?
The power source is 110 volt.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Do I have a motion to accept this as presented?
Well, you want to,
Yeah.
what I would suggest, if you would defer to my recommendation, you don't have any other concerns as put forth in my memo, may wish to consider closing the hearing contingent upon receipt of revised plans within 14 days and then issuance of an order of conditions with special conditions to govern the proposed replacement sewage disposal system and associated activities, which are normal conditions apply to any earth disturbing activity with erosion control, spill containment kit being on the site anytime there's equipment there operating. Actually, that's pretty much it, because as I mentioned in the memo, all this construction activity is within previously maintained lawn in the area that's been landscaped, and there's no appreciable change to the surface topography, which for the small section of the field that's in the ACEC, it's land subject to coastal storm flowage is within that area also, and there's no performance standards, but so he's also not changing the surface topography, so there's really no filling or changing to this land. Land subject to coastal storm flowage goes up to elevation 13. All of this property would be inundated in that particular situation. Everything would be flooded. But this is not, again, because he's maintaining pre-existing grades there, there's no negligible impact to this proposed activity because it's subsurface.
Okay. So you agree with that?
Yes.
Do I hear such a motion?
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
That's, Brad, we had a septic system a couple months ago that you sent me the stuff on, which was, you put some kind of.
Yeah, that was a different
foam
one. That was
in there or something?
Mr. Chuck Johnson's.
Yeah.
The circle and sand filter?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Let's not forget to sign things, even though we need to.
What? Oh, your tea.
Let me just read from,
I'm terribly sorry. You're right. I'm just woefully distracted. Huh?
well, that's it. This is a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, March 26, 2019, 8 p.m., Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent application filed by Rob Sawinski, Raleigh Water Department, for a proposed improvements to water distribution system, piping, and valves located on a public right-of-way, possibly within 100 feet of buffer zone or bordering vegetated wetlands at 124 Havel Street, map 15, parcel 97 in Raleigh. You have the floor.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Nealon. I'm with Tate and Howard. We are the engineer representing the Raleigh Water Department. So this is the plan. I'll just describe sort of the existing conditions and then what we're doing. So this is Haverhill Street out here. Access is off of Haverhill Street up Prospect Hill. This is the access road up to the water tank up at the top of the hill. There's an existing 16-inch water main that comes down from the tank, comes all the way down the hill, down to here, and it actually tees off and ties into an old 12-inch water main that then comes down and feeds a 10-inch line that goes in either direction, as you come down, that 12-inch line is, we presume, from the original tank. The new tank's up at the top of the hill, our new water tank, and they installed the 16-inch line at that point in time. So down at the bottom we have a mix of different size piping, 16-inch, 12-inch, 10-inch, and we have different valves. We have a couple broken insertion valves. There's just a multitude of valves, so if there's ever if the water department ever needs to isolate water mains in the direction, it's difficult to know exactly which valves need to be shut, and it's difficult to find them in a timely manner. The proposed modifications here is the 16-inch line comes down. We're going to make a three-way valve, 3 16-inch valves, and then we're going to tie back into the existing 16-inch. We're going to abandon the old 12-inch there, and we're going to tie the 16-inch into the 10-inch going in each direction. This will simplify everything down here in terms of valves. They'll be down to 3 valves instead of the 5 or 6 valves they have now to shut down if they ever need to isolate. It puts them all in one spot, so they're easy to find. And making this all 16-inch, it facilitates future improvements if they decide to go that way. There was a plan a few years ago that recommended a 16-inch water main to go down Haverhill Street, so making this a 3-way 16-inch valves with 16-inch valves allows for that future work to be done pretty easily. Wetlands each side here. I mean, the excavation will be limited to this area that's just off of Haverhill Street over here, and that's pretty much it.
All right, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, when they first put the new tank up there, didn't the water pressure go right out of sight? A few people lost.
It went up.
And I thought that those were there to slow it down, but
I
not,
don't
right?
know.
The valves?
No, the different sized pipes.
Oh,
Everybody's pipes were blowing off the walls.
I mean, this is the sole water storage tank in town. It's a 16-inch
Right.
line with
Right.
yeah,
But the point is that
the pressure got so
concern
high,
that
everything blew
Mike's
up one
talking
day.
even with the valves there and reducing and the pipeline there, you're not reducing static pressures or anything.
I suppose, yeah, you guys know that. I just, as soon as I read this report, I thought, uh-oh, it's going to happen again, but no. Anybody have any questions on this? I see Brent's got
do you
his.
have the 100-foot buffer with the wetlands on there?
So, I mean, we just have this 100.
It really
buffer
doesn't
zone.
because it's
Yeah.
all within the 100-foot
Yeah.
buffer. They're overlapping coming from both the north and the south sides of
Right.
the street.
Right.
So there's no lack of 100-foot buffer zone. So there is no edge to show you because they're there, layer caked.
Okay.
Something's got to be done, obviously. There's no other way around it.
Right, so the only challenge to this site, which we tried to address in the site visit today, so you've seen the plan, so I'll change from the plan to a few images we took today on visit. So the challenge is that you can see some of the blue flagging here marking out where dig safe is actually marked, where some of the connections are going. That hydrant is significant. So we discussed today that the area from this hydrant coming up to the sign and the road that goes down to the auto repair, the commercial building that's down slope there, that's mainly a grassed area that's just got some of this crushed rock on it. So that can be raked off and filter sock can be installed there very easily. But on the other side of that fire hydrant, heading towards the access road that goes up this hill, there's a lot of multi-floor rows, bittersweet, large vines or whatever. So it's woody, jumbled, and not a smooth, bare ground to put filter sock on. So we made the decision on site to have silt fence installed there. That would be trenched, and that wouldn't worry about whether it was. We figured there'd be a lot of prep time to try and make bare, smooth surface to put the filter sock down. So we figured that same prep time would be the time that it takes you to dig and trench in the silt fence. So why not just put silt fence there and be done with it?
Because we know the volume that can come down that hill.
Well, again, this isn't on the hill.
That's what we thought, yeah.
Yeah, and also we made a decision to remove the erosion control that's on the north side of Haverhill Street because, first off, the terrain goes up to the paved surface, and that's also kind of tapered, shunting water off towards this south side. So we didn't see any reason to put erosion control over there. What we did make a decision also that excavate or whatever, I can't see what I'm pointing to. Where's the little chain link thing there?
Right there.
Okay. So we figured that soil could possibly be stockpiled on the grass here and that they might need another length of erosion control over there. There's already provisions for erosion control to be installed there, and it's mostly grass too. So we just made a change in the erosion control for the purposes of this plan. And I did request that we receive a revised plan. There also, originally, it had 25-foot no cut, no disturbance areas on there. Well, we're not getting involved with that. This is previously developed access. This is the right-of-way. And the next thing I wanted to let the commission know about, that my recommendation on this specific filing is not to require that it be recorded at the registry. The only property this could be tied to at the registry would be the town's access way going up the hill, and the boundary line for that property is back here. Again, this work is all within the right-of-way, and I've seen other communities do this also. They basically exempt recording at the registry because it doesn't accomplish anything. It's the town or the county layout with the right-of-way, so...
Are they going back in the same trench?
The pipe, the
Yeah.
new pipe. Well, this new pipe is in a new spot right here. It's just
Yeah.
off to the side of the existing pipe, and then we're tying in to the existing pipe there. So, but this is a little bit new. This is a new area.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
all within
all
the,
level.
the crushed stone
Right, yeah.
access road.
Who owns the property?
Well, again, it's the county.
County
It's
right-of-way.
the county right-of-way.
Okay, that's what I thought you
Yeah.
said. I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, which is the only reason why I'm saying that we should just exempt recording at the registry, because it's not going to accomplish anything, and you can't tie it to a particular section of the right-of-way. Not, at least I have not been educated in that.
Do I hear a motion to approve this as presented?
So if you have no other further concerns, upon receipt and approval of revised plans within 14 days, and then issuance of an order of conditions, DEP file number 63-687, with special conditions to govern the proposed subsurface water distribution piping valves and associated activities.
I will move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
It's continued, you want to still just read it from that?
Yeah. All right, this is a legal notice of Raleigh Conservation in accordance with the Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended. The Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, 8 p.m., Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider the proposed exploratory test pile installation and extraction, possibly within 200-foot of riverfront area of the Mill River and 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetland and bordering land subject to flooding at 458 Weathersfield Street, map 11, parcel lot 4 in Raleigh, Mass.
Good evening.
You people have the floor.
Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management. Ed Boyle is here. He spoke at length last time to give you a good background about this pile installation and extraction. The Herricks are here as well. Brent and I did a site walk last week. The water was up due to the beaver dam that's on the property downstream. We did a goodwill mission over there and met with the neighbor, and apparently we have a path to be able to breach the dam, a controlled breach, in order to let the water down, and that way Ed can move his machine in there in the dry and drive the piles and extract them. We've made some, we've sent a video to Brent to show what it looks like at the point of ground insertion. It really is if you look right there, that pile's almost all the way in, and you can see there's virtually no disturbance around
It's unbelievable.
the edge of the ground there. So we're very confident we're going to be able to do this without any impact to the wetlands. Now, the one thing that Ed has suggested as a result of our site walk is we don't need...
I can't hear you because of the pile driver.
Let me yell. We don't need to do 14 piles. We can just go right down the middle of the road and do 7. So we can cut that number in half.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I laid out the piles exactly where they were on the plan, the pile locations, and some of them happen to be just off the edge of the, shall I say, the driving surface of the road. So I asked, Brent was concerned, well, if you drive here on the sort of the side slope of the farm road, you might get some soil sloughing down into the wetlands. So I asked Ed if we can get the same results by shifting them in so that they're squarely on the farm road. And at that point, they'd only be a few feet apart anyway, so one down the middle is sufficient to give us the information we need.
Okay.
One of the videos, he sent me 4 or 5 videos, so I'm very well versed. One of the videos shows you that there's this little cylindrical cone of influence from the dancing, sort of like a collar. And it's probably no bigger than 4 or 5 inches in width, depending upon the nice calculations that he gave me for all the calculations for how pounds of pressure and everything else that the little cam gears are generating. But again, Bill stated it fairly eloquently. I was just afraid that the closer you got to the edge of the roadway embankment, there could be the possibility of some instability and that material would be sloughed off and go into the wetlands. So
Right.
Mr. Boyle assured me that even if he was within a couple of feet, that basically they don't anticipate that in the center of the roadway that there's any significant change in the material that's subsurface and below the roadbed material. So putting one right down the center between each of those pairs of dots should give him just as much information as he would ascertain by doing twice as many piles.
I guess my question then is, assuming that to be true, and I don't have a problem with that, is that when it comes time to put the final piles in, assuming all of this gets approved, you're still going to be doing 2, and it isn't the same consideration in effect?
You'd have more trouble taking them out. Those are going to be taken out.
I know that, but I mean, when you drive your final piles, you're
Well,
not
this
just going to drive
this
one
isn't a
down the
construction
side.
activity. This is just a test.
I understand that. My
Right.
question is, assuming approval and all this goes forward, don't you have the same concern if, when I assume they're going to be doing 2, 2, and 2?
I don't know. We haven't received a plan
He
that
just
shows.
said yes.
Huh?
He just said yes.
That may be, but we're not in receipt of a plan. And at that point in time, once the locations are specifically designated, then we probably would engage in a dialogue as to whether that roadbed embankment material, fill material, is going to be removed from there to release that floodplain and restore it au naturel after you get done putting your piles in.
So the question was disturbance around the outboard piles. If we go down the center of the roadway for tests, the outboard piles will, that driving in through the center will probably be indicative of the outboard piles as well. Anytime we do, so for example, if the roadway is 20 feet wide, 18 feet perhaps on the center for the piles, and then a slight cantilever on either side, you'd simply sock around the pile. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well,
If you were protected?
Yeah.
Ed, he's actually anticipating the actual plan for the bridge now.
Right.
We've moved beyond your testing.
Right, I got that part, but that's what
You
you
could
do
put
to
a
protect,
put a
sock
pile
around the
sock
pile.
around it.
A donut.
Yeah.
Right. Or collar, however you want to express
They
it.
have metal
Yeah.
codes and soft codes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And we've got the notes here. So, you people going to get the water down? You've already spoke with the homeowner,
Neighbor.
the neighbor, the bridge. They're gonna.
What we're going to end up doing is there'll be some coordination here.
Yeah.
We'll get the order of conditions. We'll get it recorded, ready to go. We'll have I assume we'll have our pre-installation meeting. When we know we're going to do this, we'll have spoken with the neighbor, get paperwork that she wants signed. We'll get that taken care of. We expect that when we breach the dam, it's going to be a day or 2 or 3 to let all that water come out of there.
Take a week.
Mr. Herrick
So-
spent most of the summer doing that.
So we'll do it with appropriate lead time. And so, Ed's going to be ready to go. We'll have the dam breached. So there's going to be a process.
Yep. All right, so at this time, any other questions from the board? Any questions from the neighbors? Anybody else from the audience?
The other thing, Brent, you were going to write this just in case the lowering of the
I'm gonna write a
dam
provision
doesn't
that
work.
would allow mats to be brought in case
Right.
you don't achieve a dry roadbed within the emergency certification permit. If the board so directs me, that allows the breaching is good for 30 days. We anticipate that if there's no Noah's flood within that 30-day period, that hopefully the breaching would be enough to bring the water level down.
30 days should be, I would
That
think.
should do
Yes.
the job.
Okay. And that's obviously okay with you guys, because you've talked about it. All right. So I hear a motion to accept this?
So issue an order.
Issue an order? Closing the hearing?
I move that we issue your conditions DEP 63,
63,
With the
685.
discussion.
So I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Go, baby, drill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just gotta know when you're doing it. I wanna bring my grandkids on the road so they can see it.
right.
I wanna bring my grandkids over so they can see you do it. I got a grandson that would love to see you do that.
Right here in protection.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Good night.
Well, and I told him today, some of that information, as much as he sent me a brochure from the company that makes the actuator heads or whatever, which contained their various calculations for figuring out the pounds pressure and stuff, and like physics flashed, college physics flashed before my eyes a
You
little
said
bit.
you're never gonna use that.
Well, no, I actually told him when he came in later on, I said, I can see why this interests you and you've really gotten into it. I said, that it is really intriguing, this whole interface between the soils and the equipment and all of that stuff. A science and art and a bit of engineering all thrown together.
I never liked Newton. That's why I became an electrical engineer.
Okay, am I correct in that we're at the 41, 49
Yep.
Emily Lane? We have a request for a continuance.
All right,
Mr.
good.
Chairman.
This is directed to Chairman Page and Commissioners. On behalf of Bruce Tompkins, Stephanie DeJardis, as the trustees of the Tompkins DeJardis Trust, we respectfully request that the above referenced notice of intent application be continued April 16th, which is our
Yep, next meeting.
next meeting. April 16th, 2019, we are addressing comments received from the Commission at the January public hearing and recent comments received from the Massachusetts Department of EPA. Feel free to contact me, James Kulis. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to continue.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Let's continue to April 16th.
Now, I would like to jump over the other two to the Rickers.
We have a gentleman in the audience here representing 201 Oxford Road.
Oh, okay.
Can we
All right.
please do that one with,
All right. New request for a certificate of compliance, DEP 63-602, 201 Boxford Road, map 2, parcel lot 22. There we go.
For the record, Tyler Ferrick with DeRosa Environmental. Historically, we submitted a notice of intent way back in 2010. And this was in regards to the Mother's Day storm that actually washed out the access drive to the property. And so in doing so, they have a sandy gravel driveway. All that sediment went into the BVW and some parts of the Mill River. So the notice of intent was for the restoration of the stream and the BVW. So we did that work, and that was back in, that would have been back in
2014, 15?
14, yeah, because the plants were put in the 14 in the spring. So everything was taken out, sediment was removed and actually regraded back into parts of the driveway. Native plant species were put back in. We've monitored the restoration area since. It's all grown in. And actually there was really good growth once we removed the sediment anyways. All the native skunk cabbage and everything else came up. So everything's well established, and we're requesting a certificate of compliance for that work.
As soon as we hear from Mr. Bazelak.
yeah, so I didn't know if we were interested in it. Well, I guess the photos aren't the most descriptive under the sun. This is one of the situations where if you react within a period of time, it doesn't have to be instantaneous, but it can be at least 1 or 2 years down the road, that the seed and rootstock, even though it may be buried under inches of gravel sediment, upon release, it will activate. It's amazing what sunlight does to a retained seed source and root systems that just need the power of the sun to get them going again. It just doesn't happen to include the famous picture I had of the pickup truck here.
Oh, that was in the notice of intent.
Yeah,
That was
in the notice of intent.
Yeah.
Well, so the gravel embankment on either side of concrete head walls and a dual pipe for the Mill River to go through.
Yep.
When the Mill River couldn't fit through the capacity of those pipes, it went up over the gravel roadway. Now the interesting thing was, this is a key selling point for why you want a vegetated surface. So the edges of the gravel embankment were thickly grassed, and only the top of the roadbed that you drove upon was gravel. The water went up, and the grass, the turf, resisted the scouring effects of that water, but as soon as the water got to the gravel surface, it started pulling away the gravel. And I've got a picture of a pickup truck with its front axle and tires down in the water, and the water basically halfway up the radiator grill on the front of the truck, because it went right underneath the truck, scoured all the gravel out from underneath it, and then went over the grassed embankment on the other side. The grassed embankment stayed in place, but the center of the roadway and the gravel was all eaten out by the velocity of the water, and the truck just kept sinking. Anyway, we retrieved all of that gravel. It got spread back on the roadbed out of jurisdictional resource areas where it belonged, and they released all the suppressed, as well as opened up the capacity of the Mill River as it was appropriately.
That's a well zone, isn't it?
Yes, that is in both the Municipal Water Supply Protection District as well as, I believe, in Zone 2 on that side of Raleigh. So I would recommend that the Commission would so consider it to issue a complete certificate of compliance. There are no ongoing conditions because this was restoration, and we achieved the desired results, which is returning the surface topography to pre-flood conditions and the riverbank and the river channel, and release the native vegetation. So just a complete certification with no ongoing conditions.
Do we hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Great. Thank you.
signatures. Thank you. Chairman, you wish to-
I wish to jump in order to get the records squared away. We have a enforcement order at 43 Daniels Road, map 8, parcel lot 51. Rear northeast section, Harold Ricka Realty Trust, Deborah Ricka trustee, for cutting of vegetation, altering, grading, dumping of fill, earth disturbance within 100 feet of a buffer zone bordering vegetated wetlands, failure to obtain proper permit, failure to utilize erosion control as required. Deb?
I'm Debbie Rick.
Yep.
So I got the notice on Monday, last Monday was. And evidently there had been other letters sent, and I wasn't aware of it. I went online, it said it would just left at my house in Danvers. I have someone on the property that doesn't have approval, never did have approval. My older brother had passed December 10th. I was under the impression that his son had already left the property. So, anyway, he's been on the property. He's the one that let people on the property to do what they thought they could do. I did call an attorney on Monday, last Monday. On Wednesday, he advised me to at least immediately start what they call a 14-day quit eviction notice. I did that on Friday. The nephew received it yesterday. I quickly went on the property yesterday, but turned around and then went to the police and just said that I wasn't comfortable being on the property, not knowing what was going on. So the bottom line is I'm here to work with you. I just need a little bit more time. I am not going to be like some of the other people and be, all over you. I just need, this is overwhelming. And the fact that there's some family dynamics, I just need to step back and make sure I do the legal thing there.
Yeah, I was waiting to hear from you and didn't hear. I was almost ready to call Tommy, your brother-in-law, Tommy Reed, to see how to get in touch with you, and we were having trouble. But the part of it, what was originally brought to the attention was some of it wasn't even your land, and that was the thing that was. I know.
Monday was the first time I even saw. I mean, other than the pictures that when Brent sent it. Yeah. So I'm overwhelmed, but I will do whatever I have to do. He's given me a list of things that need to, in succession that I need to do. I've hired an attorney, but I mean, everything takes money, and then it was just like, okay, at least do the online version of the eviction notice, start that process. So I'm just asking you for maybe a little bit more time.
Yep.
For that April 22nd.
And do you know there'll be no more construction or excavation?
I went to, I talked to Sergeant Sedgwick on Monday and asked him if I could, put something there so that nobody could go on the property. He goes, well, I'm not sure of that. So I'm waiting to, after this meeting tomorrow, to call the attorney and see if I can put some, a piece of equipment that I approve of just to block anybody coming in and out. The concern is whatever's going to happen, as the eviction notice plays out. So, again, I'll do my
So-
very best to,
No.
I even said to Brent before the meeting that I'll come back
Right.
down when things are not on microphones and stuff like that, and give a little bit more information.
And the commission has been fully involved in this from the initiation, and we did not seek this out. We were alerted by an abutting property owner, so that's how we got involved. And the communication that you've received, any dates in there are subject to adjustment. As I mentioned to you earlier, when we don't have any back and forth communication, the commission does rely upon me to just make a best guesstimate of if somebody started doing something now, when do you think they might be able to have things done? So those are meant as guideposts. They are not meant as mandated by that date, you must do such and such. There wasn't the intention of that because we hadn't had an opportunity to have a discussion. And so I guess the most important thing before you leave this evening, if you could possibly give me an email address and a phone number that I can reach out and communicate with you. You just write it down. That will facilitate us being in contact, and also at your convenience getting together and figuring out how to go forward.
That's the overwhelming thing for me,
Right.
and I
Right.
apologize. This is new to me, but I mean,
Understood.
I realize one other thing. It's the HAR Ricker Realty Trust, not Harold.
Oh, is it?
So
I may have gotten that from assessor's information, which isn't always
it's
totally
okay.
current.
It's the same property.
And I'm sorry, what did you say that was again?
It's HAR Ricker Realty Trust.
H-A-R. Okay.
Brent, have a question on that?
Mr. Riccier.
Prior to coming to the meeting this evening, I swung over on my property, and this is what is on your property right now.
I saw that yesterday.
Right, you're aware of that?
I drove in
Yeah.
just before I went to the police. I drove in and saw that. I took a picture of that myself, and I took a picture of some other stuff that was there.
What is that, an excavator digging?
No, it's just sitting there. It wasn't excavating.
I don't know, I didn't go on the her
No,
property.
no. Again, I'm being quite honest.
I know.
Right.
I see it.
Okay, I
You're
saw it
finding
for the
out
first
all
time
about this
myself
now.
yesterday,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and immediately got off the property because and then I went to the police station and gave them a copy of the eviction, the 14-day quit.
All right,
So I will do.
very good, we'll be
Should I-
staying in contact. And
Okay.
So, let's defer with the commission's permission. We'll continue and
And I will work with Brent to
Yep.
try to figure out.
just
I appreciate it. Really.
answer calls or anything, you don't have to come to the meetings or any of that, but it's just, unless we ask you to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all we need.
I appreciate
Thank you.
that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Now, that answers a lot of questions. Oh, let's go back to a certificate of compliance.
Well, we need to ratify the enforcement order, or?
we did that already. We confirmed and ratified
Last meeting.
issuance at the last meeting.
All right.
Chairman.
So are we continuing this to the next meeting?
Well, you don't actually have to continue it
As long as they
administrative.
don't
I see
continue.
You've
Yeah.
already taken action on it. The document does have some dates on it, but we just discussed that those dates are guidance, and upon further consultation now with the property owner that we've established communications with, we'll work. That timeline may be adjusted as in consultation with the board.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, now we have a new reissuance of a certificate of compliance, number 63-152, and a rescission of an invalid certificate for land at Weathersfield Street, aka Todd's Lane, map 23, parcel 84, lots 1, 3, 5, 6, never recorded.
Okay.
What's that mean?
Well, all right. So we started on a journey where we started looking at Saunders Lane. Saunders Lane was, if you want to think of it this way, which is probably a good way to think of it, Saunders Lane was actually phase 2. It was phase 2 of a development that started on Weathersfield Street, where Green Needle Lane is now located. And it started off being proposed as Todd's Lane, part of the Pines development. And at different points in time, a common name seems to be Frank Todd and Mike Kenny. But originally, I think it started off as Weathersfield Realty Trust. And so Weathersfield Realty Trust was a subdivision roadway. Todd's Lane, aka now known as Green Needle Lane. There was some wetlands filling, there was some basin work, etc. Part of the wetlands replication, which was taking place on, I think, the lots identified as lots 4 and 5, was not successful. And the Conservation Commission back in 2003 was approached by Mr. Frank Todd with a notice of intent application to undertake replanting of the wetlands replication area because it had not been successful. Apparently the inundated areas of it may not have been planted with wetlands plants that could stand inundation, i.e. flooding. And so, for whatever reason, it wasn't successful. All right, don't speculate. So for whatever reason, the Conservation Commission voted, when they got the new order of conditions for the new replication work, in my professional opinion, they inappropriately voted to issue a certificate of compliance invalidating the order of conditions 63-152 that resulted in the construction of the subdivision roadway, its drainage systems, and some of the wetlands replication for the wetlands filling that the roadway initiated. Now, invalidation means exactly that. Supposedly, you are making a statement at that point in time that, and I'll read you, it is hereby certified that the work required in the above referenced order of conditions never commenced. The order of conditions has lapsed and it is therefore no longer valid. Neither of those statements are true. The order of conditions had been valid for a period of time. The work had commenced. Todd's Lane turned into Green Needle Lane, however that occurred, and a connection. Todd's Lane was supposed to be a cul-de-sac roadway. It changed to a connection that goes into Saunders Lane, which is why I say think of Saunders Lane as phase 2, and Todd's Lane, aka Green Needle Lane, was phase 1. Well, they issued a certificate of compliance to invalidate it. The only good news is we can't find that they ever recorded it. We also believe that we haven't had people coming into us complaining to us about not being able to get financing because the order hasn't been closed, because the original order references Todd's Lane. So for a period of time, you can go into the registry, and we've done it. Debbie and I have done it multiple times the past days, so that I could sit in front of you and realistically tell you that, in fact, this certificate of compliance was never recorded. It never invalidated the original order. But no one's been coming to us because everybody puts in Green Needle Lane to look up the titles of their properties.
There's no
Nobody
problem.
puts in Todd's Lane. If they put in Todd's Lane, they would find this unclosed order of conditions.
All right, how do we fix that?
That's exactly what we're proposing to you tonight. So my proposal, and I spoke to town council about this, you vote to invalidate this certificate of compliance that was issued invalidating 63-152. That's the first step. Then I'm going to ask you to vote to issue a complete certificate of compliance for 63-152, stating that all work has in fact gone to completion, because it now has, because the new later order of conditions for wetlands replication planting did occur, and the commission did issue a certificate of compliance for that. But the mistake here was wiping out an order of conditions that created a subdivision roadway that actually was built and exists. Never should have made a statement that it got invalidated because the work never commenced, because in fact most of the work had commenced.
So to what street are we issuing this certificate?
Well, okay.
We'll do it double.
Okay.
So are we doing it to Todd,
Well,
or are we
again,
doing it
double.
to the green, to the
Well,
needles?
Can we
First, can we
Do step one,
invalidate?
just
Can we
invalidate.
wait, and there's another thing here, but I would like you, again, I would like you to do a motion, if you would so entertain, a motion that rescinds, invalidates an order of conditions that was, a certificate of compliance that, an invalid certificate of compliance issued on May 27th, 2003.
Well, here's such a motion.
For 63-152.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was unanimous, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's rescinded. Great, thank you. Okay.
Now we need a certificate of compliance.
Right. So now, on behalf of the Raleigh Conservation Commission, I have submitted to the office a request for a certificate of compliance for 63-152. That original order of conditions was recorded under the name Weathersfield Realty Trust. It was recorded on May 17, 1994. And how I've referenced the property address is Green Needle Lane, formerly known as Todd's Lane, map 23, parcel 84, lots 1 through 3, 5 through 6. Those are the lots that exist today that are that original subdivision. And I would offer a recommendation that you consider issuance of a complete certificate of compliance for 63-152. There are no ongoing conditions that I can ascertain, and if you so choose to vote to issue this, I would request that you direct me, utilizing Wetlands Protection Act monies as appropriate, to record this at the registry.
How much is it recorded on that?
$75.
Do I hear such a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous. Thank you very much. And so, to finish this off, there may be more, but this was the first step to try and remember you previously also voted for a complete certificate of compliance for Saunders Lane, and so I have that to record. Now I will have these to record. May I also ask your permission to direct me to record the reissued order of conditions that resulted in the replanting of the wetlands replication area for the Green Needle Lane, aka Todd's the Pine subdivision. This has never been recorded. So I'm just
So
asking,
now we're
I'm,
gonna
I'm
have
just
to-
asking you to authorize me to record this.
So now
Yeah.
we're gonna have to issue a certificate of compliance.
No, you do not. You're just authorizing, the certificate of compliance has already been issued, but no one's ever recorded it.
Oh,
So I'm asking you.
do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
When
Okay,
was
yeah,
that
that was a
certificate of
cluster right
completion?
from the
I'm sorry, who moved? No?
I did.
Sam,
Sam.
thank you. And Dan, second?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dumb question, when was that certificate of compliance
Whoops,
issued?
actually, that's-
Like years ago?
Excuse me.
Really long time ago.
Very long time ago.
Actually, no, this. No, for whatever reason, the the replanting and everything was taken care of in 2001, was the issued order. And then the certificate of compliance for that was issued in April 30th, 2003.
Okay, a while ago.
So,
So
yeah,
it's-
just before I came to work for the town. But we can't find any trace that these ever got recorded. And
All right, now the final thing here is the Pikel property, and that answers that question we had. It's a notice of pending sale, Pikel property, various parcels are subject to a 61A agricultural, horticultural land notice of sale. It's gonna be a sale of the property, but not a conversion from its use. And so they have asked for a request for the waiver of the right of first refusal, because that's under the conservation, so we have a first refusal. But my only question is, are they going to take all the properties?
well, actually, may I advise you, because there's information
Yeah.
that you do not have,
Oh, okay.
the total picture on this at this point in time. So, number one, I reached out when I first received this communication to the attorney representing the Pikels and asked, because I honestly didn't know who Matthew Kozaki,
Matt, Tendercroft.
Tendacroft.
right, but I didn't know that.
Oh,
And nothing in here says that.
Sure.
Yeah.
right.
And it turns out, he informed me that he sent me back a communication, we had a little chat. He sent me back a communication and said, well, there is an affidavit for the buyer to fill out that states his intentions and his, that he's going to continue agricultural pursuits on the property. And I said, well, and just for edification, if there's any little history thing or something that tells about, what Tendercroft is all about or whatever, it might be nice to include that. I then found out, I can't remember who it was, it may have been Commissioner Turner, or you, asked me to designate all the properties. And I believe I sent you a PDF scan of 4 different views of the assessor's maps,
Yes.
because the parcels were
Yeah.
scattered and fairly numerous. In doing that, I found out, in looking through this, the purchase and sale agreement lists out all the properties, there is an agricultural preservation restriction that is held by the town,
And
which
the
the
state.
town spent money on, and the state, DEM,
Yeah.
and Department of Food and Agriculture. Well, that agricultural preservation restriction says that they need to offer it to those parties, and we have not received an offer to sell. So, as has been pointed out this evening, I've never pretended to be an attorney and do not play one even for the commission. So I don't know whether this communication is sufficient, and this communication does not demonstrate that it's been copied to the state at all. The only person it mentions on here is Peter Church, a state forester, in the Department of Conservation and Recreation.
That's on the-
It doesn't mention Food and Agriculture at all, or the Department of Agriculture. And I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure, since the agricultural preservation restriction says you're supposed to receive an offer, it doesn't talk about a first refusal. It makes it sound like you're actually supposed to be given an offer. But I don't know if those two things are simultaneously the same thing. So there's two things that I wanted to advise you, and I would suggest that we not do anything on this at this point in time, is that, number one, we're not sure if the notification or the offering process proscribed in the APRs has been done. I don't know if this passes for it. And again, I'm not sure that we've received actually the full information that we should receive, i.e., I don't know if it's germane for our decision to know that tender crop is a valid, an entity. I think you sort of intuitively know that they operate up in Newbury, I guess, or is it Newburyport?
In Newbury and
In
Wenham.
Dover,
Yeah.
Wenham, yeah.
So it certainly
Big one in Dover.
They're
So it certainly seems like they're appropriate, but I don't
Yes.
know
Yeah.
if the selectmen have not asked us to comment, and they usually do, about an offer of first refusal. There is a time period that you have, 100 days or 120 days, I think.
Are they aware of this? Have you talked to Debbie about this at all?
I have, and was directed that this is not the top thing at the time when they're doing budgeting and union negotiating and getting ready for the town warrant or whatever. But she is well aware that there is an agricultural preservation restriction apparently on most of the properties that are listed there.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but most of them.
And there's a couple there that he bought at different times. The stuff near me, and they were under different names because it was Pikel Farm Inc. and then there was Stan Pikel. And
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're doing it, but I figured that
Right.
somebody should know.
Yeah, my impression is that the attorney that contacted us didn't really follow procedure properly.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it.
So now
I
he-
believe-
now he will probably,
I'm pretty
yeah.
certain there's got to be a right of first.
Well, I haven't
refusal.
Various things happened today.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't had an opportunity to reach back out to the attorney who sent us this communication and ask him if the procedure in the APRs was being followed or triggered, or whether it had, so I just had already put it on the agenda because I didn't want to slow anything down, and I was trying to do due diligence for the commission so that I could adequately communicate to you this evening. And I think at this point in time, I don't think we're ready to make any type of decision, because I'm not sure that everything appropriate has been submitted at this point in time.
Just for a point of information, what's the difference between an agricultural restriction versus a conservation restriction? Are they the same?
The name.
And who holds it?
It's a type of easement, just like a conservation restriction is a type of easement.
Yeah, because I know we did a conservation restriction on the Mahaffey farm. That's a conservation restriction. We're
Correct.
saying this is an agricultural restriction.
They actually sold the farm
Right.
to the town, the development
They
rights to the
sold-
town, the state, and the agricultural
Yeah.
commission.
Yeah, there were two state entities that funded that, plus some from the.
Yeah, there's
Some of the
state
Basically,
monies
state.
that were designated for that.
To
but
be
it
able to
was-
fund that
So they
restriction.
own,
Right.
yeah, and that's different than the conservation restriction.
So you can sell that land,
Conservation-
well, unless, after you follow the right thing.
But
But
it
it
has-
has to be used.
has to be
For
farmed.
agriculture, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be farmed, not just quote unquote left undisturbed.
But I think that attorney ought to check into the dump, because the town had me trying to get that.
Yeah, that's not included in any. There are parcels that are
Oh, it's not
specifically
included.
excluded.
Okay, so let's see other land, like the land on
Well,
one side
that's-
of the tracks.
That's why I sent you those MyMap things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if it wasn't clear on them, but there was just
It
so
was
many.
hard to read on my phone, but yeah,
Oh,
I know where they are, so I knew what it was.
Okay.
But, all right, any project or comments? None. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.